Welcome to the Virtual Entrepreneurship Center. The VEC is a collaborative project between Alabama A&M University, located in Huntsville, Alabama, Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama, and Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama. This afternoon I have with me a very special guest, Darian Baldwin, who's Dean of Technical Education and Workforce Development at Southern Union State College. Darian, thank you so much and welcome to the VEC. I want to kind of talk to you about kind of piggybacking off of your presentation a little earlier today, thinking outside of the workforce development box. I love that coinage, and I was listening attentively. But before we sort of, use that as the launching pad to have a dialogue, and again, that's thinking outside of the workforce development box, why don't you tell us a little something about yourself and what you do, and maybe even why you do it? Because I don't believe that people are just in positions, in a professional manner because they just happen to walk into them. There's a pathway and there's a purpose behind why people do things and where people are. So if you don't mind, tell us a little something about about yourself and how did you get to your professional career pathway and where you are right now, what you're doing.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, I am a lifelong educator.
Okay.
I started out, and one of the things that I really enjoy doing when we're recruiting and talking to students is ask a simple question: do you know the difference between a job and a career? And I kind of boil that down to when I was coming through high school, I really didn't enjoy high school. And here I am, a lifelong educator.
I don't think most of us really.
But I had an agri-science teacher that really inspired me. And so I came out and I was an agri-science teacher. And so I spent some time in the agri-science classroom. And from there, I became a career tech administrator. And from there, I spent some time with the State Department of Education. And back to a career tech administrator, and now at Southern Union as Dean of Technical Education and Workforce Development.
Let me ask you something, Darren. What was so unique about your response right there is that you told us about someone who inspired you. Who was that person? And what was so unique and important about them that you wanted to model yourself almost after them? And the reason I ask that question is because I've had a couple of people in my own personal life that I just look to in terms of, I'm currently standing on their shoulders because they were giants, in my own personal life. Who's that person and what did they bring to the table that you took pieces of in a way as you went on your own professional, pathway?
Well, when you make that connection, and then you kind of knew that you make that connection, and they cared about you from a student perspective and educational perspective, and wanted to see you do well. And whatever it was that you were doing, it might have been the academic class, it might have been his particular classes that he was offering. They wanted to see you do well, and whatever the task was.
Okay.
So we kind of take that forward, and our focus is on the student and bringing the students forward.
I can see that that person is special to you, and again, I've had people in my life's journey that mean that much to me. Is it safe to say that you carry that into the classroom as you work with students as well?
Well, I would hope I did.
Okay. Well, what is the real big picture understanding around technical college education? In other words, what are some of the outcomes that you would think that a larger, wider audience needs to be aware of in terms of, what's the big picture pieces that are coming out of today's technical college education?
I think our students are a well-rounded individual, more so than just with the technical skill set, but with the academic skills behind them as well. But we also have a set of stackable credentials that a student could earn along the way, whether it be a short-term certificate in addition to their associate degrees, or whether it be their industry recognized credentials coming out.
Could you go into some detail about those stackable certifications? Because I don't know if the average citizen in the state of Alabama, say for instance someone who hasn't really decided on what they're going to do in life, or someone who has pursued a particular career and needs to make now a readjustment because of certain market conditions. What would be some of those stackable certifications that right now, upon completion, are really landing people in employable situations?
Well, for instance, within our associate degree programs, whether it's an associate in applied science or an associate of occupational technologies, there is a short-term certificate and a certificate built up under those where there's shorter amount of credit hours required.
Okay.
So a student could come in and take a short-term certificate and be employable at, say, 9 or 22 hours and earn a short-term certificate coming out at that point. So you could look at it as coming in and getting a short-term certificate in 2 semesters versus 5 semesters for an associate degree program.
Okay, and I was, you beat me to the punch, because I was going to ask what's the duration of the acquisition of those short-term certificates. So we're talking about a traditional, two semester college process time.
Right, and that may vary, speaking specifically for Southern Union, that may vary from college to college, depending on which certificate you're after.
Okay, is there anything that's semi more accelerated than that, or is that the accelerated version?
Well, your short-term certificates are going to be
Your more accelerated version. Okay. How can
unless you go to a non-credit.
Unless you go to a non-credit. Okay. Are there any advantages to doing the non-credit piece?
Just depends on what your outcome that you're seeking.
Okay. Okay. What would be sort of the characteristic of somebody who decides to do the non-credit as opposed to the credit hours?
Well, non-credit training, for instance, at Southern Union specifically, we have a 6-week long truck drivers CD Class A CDL training. So they come into our non-credit truck driving training program. In 6 weeks, come out hopefully with a CDL license.
Okay, gotcha.
Either become a local carrier, or work for a local carrier, or work for the over the road.
I remember having dinner with a couple at a function in Chicago about a month and a half ago at the Chicago University of Chicago Club, and they were telling me about having trouble in the industry that the wife was working in, from a logistics standpoint of view, finding capable drivers that are out there. Has your program been able to meet the challenges of that kind of industry issue, an employment issue that's out there? Is that the case here within the state of Alabama? Not being able to find certified truck drivers.
Well, there's a huge demand for
Huge demand.
Class A drivers.
Okay. Very good. Okay. What can entrepreneurs and small business owners do? You're giving out some pearls of wisdom now. What can they do in order to establish a meaningful relationship that will lead to business success with them? When I say relationship, with Southern Union and other technical colleges, technical colleges are doing all kinds of great things. You're living proof of that. Your presentation was very specific in terms of how you all are building your own, model of partnering, scenarios. You're talking about articulation agreements with universities and things of that nature, 4-year, degree granting institutions. So how can the average entrepreneur and small business owner begin to build a meaningful relationship with, say, a Southern Union Technical College in order to experience, business success, as an outcome? What would be some things that they would need to do in order to take advantage of that?
Well, we offer for instance, continuing ed classes.
Mhm.
And we offer, under our division, training for existing business and industry. So if
Mhm.
there was a need or a desire to have a particular course
Mhm.
or training, we,
Mhm.
say for leadership or
Mhm.
some type of training,
Mhm.
we could offer some potential classes.
My light bulb when came on when you just mentioned that. Does the average entrepreneur, small business owner, even remotely aware that that kind of expertise and technical assistance to help them be successful is readily available at Southern Union and other technical colleges? I mean, and I'm kind of networked, in a lot of different places, but the way you just said that, I'm going, wow.
Well, it's preferenced in different ways at different colleges. We call it training for existing business and industry.
Mhm.
Other colleges call it community and corporate education.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's different. It's called different things at different institutions.
Okay. Is there an ideal? Well, let me ask this: what research? I tell you what, we're going to stop right here, but I promise you, we'll be right back with you in terms of the conversation that we're having. Take care.